Good morning. I'm Janie Parrish with the Wadsworth Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're doing another podcast at the fabulous WCTV studio. And we're lucky today because we're going to talk with Dave Williams. And Dave is the president of our city council. He's been a city council person for 11.5 years, but I'm going to round it up to 12.
There you go.
Yeah, so he was originally council at large, and then for the past almost 2 years, he has been the council president. A huge job. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I love
Appreciate
it. Yeah,
Thank you,
I love
citizens.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dave and I really talked about what we wanted him to talk about, and one of Dave's passion has been the recycling.
No, not really.
It's
But it's one of the things that come with the job. You actually asked me what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
What was the theme? And I bought a couple of some furniture, some outdoor furniture, and there was
Yeah.
these huge cartons.
okay.
So after putting everything together, broke down the cartons. And I was taking them to our bins down at the by the sanitary
Transfer
station, and they were full. And I'm looking in there, and there's all these boxes that are not broken down. There would be a large container, and there was like 6 boxes taking up half of it that weren't broken down. I said, well, sounds like the topic we need to do.
Okay.
So that's how I came about with the theme of
Okay.
recycling.
All right. So tell us your thoughts about it.
Okay, well, what I do as a council person always is not based on emotion, but based on facts.
Okay.
So everything that I'm going to say has been based on the facts that I know to be true. And if you take recycling, you go back to 1988, House Bill 592 required the counties, all 88 counties, including Medina County, of course, to have a solid waste district plan required by that. And their goal was, from the House of Representatives in Ohio, was to eliminate trash going to the landfills, trying to get away from that. So part of that element was a recycle plan. So everybody had to have a solid waste plan in every county. Not all counties had to do it themselves. There are several counties, such as Stark, Wayne, and Tuscarawas, have their own district. So there's 3 counties that are able to do it. In our particular county, there's 1. Our commissioners at the time went out for a request for proposals, to do a recycle facility and a solid waste facility, and they chose a site on Lake Road. They wanted to own the property, but they wanted somebody to come in and run it. So when they put that out, Envision Environmental was Envision Waste was the first winner of that contract. They designed and equipped the building. And I believe they had like a 3-year contract with an option of an extension of another 3, and then it got into a 5, and so on and so forth. A lot of things changed over the years, and the government says you need to do more. But in 2017, China came, when they went into the World Trade Organization, they were cracked down on because of their waste and abuse as far as their landfills and what have you. So they came up with it's called a green sword. They quit buying products on the open market, all your recyclables that we used to just send to China and forget about. It absolutely collapsed the market. They took 90, let me see here, I got the number highlighted. It was like 99% of our waste.
Oh, my.
And it was not just the United States, but it was also Europe. So also the other Asian countries like Vietnam and
Korea.
They didn't take it either. So we're left. They already take all these recyclables. They were sitting in warehouses and no market for it. The absolute plastic, paper, rubber, they all just collapsed as far as the value. So, and glass. So the commissioners wanted to do another plan. They sent out another request for proposal. Envision placed one out there, very competitive, but they wanted a 10-year
Contract.
so
Yeah.
they could amortize their costs because they were going to pay for the equipment. So they chose not to do that. There was one commissioner who voted for that. That was Commissioner Geisman. The rest of them didn't. And so from that, they started a new plan. They absolutely sold every bit of the conveyors and the material sorters that we had. So there was nothing but a warehouse. Right now, it's pretty much that's what's going on there. It's just another transfer station. So it brings us to the kind of the current. Is that right? Yeah, I mean, we want to talk about where we're at currently.
Yes, please.
So there's still no market for the materials. There are some companies that are able to do the light plastics, which are the 1 and 2, such as you'll find on a water bottle or a Coke bottle, but they have to be clean. There's a little bit of demand for clean fiber, such as paper, cardboard a little bit. Most of the cardboard that doesn't really get cycled into cardboard boxes. They use it for the interior linings, like the dividers and that. That's kind of where the recycled part of that is. Aluminum, not much of a market. The two big users of aluminum is the aerospace industry and the auto industry, and they want virgin aluminum. They don't want the recycled product. Glass, because of the coloring, not much of a market for it as well. So it brings us to our current state. Everybody wants to say, well, why don't we do curbside cycling? Good question.
Sure.
Love to.
Yep.
Expense, and still no market for the materials put in. The EPA in this, has a plan that all recycled materials, it's called a flow control. Everything picked up, whether it's in our dumpsters, our home, or industrial waste, has to go to Medina County transfer station. And 25% of that has to be recyclable materials, collected. Not eventually going into recyclables, but it has to be collected. Our bins qualify for that. The trucks that pick up, like in the county, and I think Brunswick has curbside, that also counts towards that 25% goal. But again, it's just collected. Most of what you see that's in those bins is going to end up in a landfill. So, do you have any questions so far?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I remember when people would, like churches and other organizations, would have a bin for you to put your paper in, and they would get paid for the poundage. So that is long gone.
That's pretty much so. I mean, there's still a couple of churches in a urban area. All the rural areas, those are gone because of the cost to collect the materials.
Okay. So I remember up at Bueller's, they had lists, like a whole row of the recycle bins. Okay, they were a mess, and you and I both were, when we were cleaning up our spring cleanup in our parks and stuff. We found things that never should have been around, including needles.
Hypodermic needles. I had a volunteer get stuck with one, and looking around that site, there was additional needles. I mean, it was abused. And you look at what was in that park, it was trash spread out, in a large area. So when the county went out to, place bins throughout the county, Wadsworth agreed to 3. Our at that time our service director, and they wanted one in the township. Well, the township didn't want it, so we took it. So that's how it ended up in 2 of the parks. We had bins. And then, of course, at the sanitation department. And then Bueller's, allowed that. It's funny, we talk about Bueller's, like you mentioned. They had it with the trash that was spread through down Great Oaks Trail. And not only that, but their store on River Styx, it was the same way. So it's not just isolated to Wadsworth. People just aren't doing the right thing. So after the second time, they just had enough, and that's how we ended up with more at our transfer station. And so all that blight that was in our parks and Bueller's is now at our transfer station.
And I think we've all seen it.
And it's because it's being abused. And that's just what you see. And you don't see what's been thrown in there because there's so much contamination. When they take those containers and take them back to Lake Road, they dump them out, and it's amazing what they'll find. And it's still all of it. They don't sort things out. It all goes to the landfill. So
it's really not recycling then?
no.
No.
But it's getting that 25% requirement from the Ohio EPA. That's what they're doing.
And I think it's a feel-good thing, like I'm recycling.
I feel good because I try not to buy anything from Amazon and all these other home delivery services. Most of what you look in there is an Amazon or maybe from another shipper. I'm kind of a local guy. I like to shop locally.
You do.
I haven't seen Amazon sponsor a Little League team. I mean, your nephews or grandchildren
Grandsons.
play. Have you seen an Amazon sponsorship?
No.
I haven't either. But I've seen plenty of local businesses.
Yes.
Including
Yes.
the big box stores.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
That's one thing. And the other thing is to reduce your waste in your home. Plastics, I mean, we're just pretty much trying to get away from everything plastic. You still have the microplastic. If you're drinking a bottle of water, you're getting microplastic into your system. And that's, something to think about. So anyhow, getting back to the recycling, why don't we do curbside?
That's a good I've heard that over and over.
So we have enterprise funds in this town, our electric department, our sanitation department, WCTV. An enterprise fund it has to be self-supporting. In other words, we can't lose money on it.
Okay.
So when you break it all down, our sanitation department cannot show a loss. We have to be in the black. And we have looked at that. And to do curbside recycling, you need 3 trucks. Okay, they're side loaders to pick up the containers like you see now. They're $390,000 a piece. Okay, that's one thing.
Okay.
Our sanitation trucks are probably the things that break down the most, not because of abuse or anything. It's just the type of wear and the weight and what have you. And we always look at the best units that we can get for the best value. So we're out there trying to do the right thing. But just the annual cost, not counting the driver, is about $60,000 a truck to keep them on the road. The rear tires wear out every 4 months, and there's 8 of those. The brakes wear out about every 3 months. Then as far as the total wear, they only last about 7 years if you're lucky. So you're spending $390,000 and you're only maybe getting 7 years. A lot of times it's 5 to 7 and they're wore out.
Oh my gosh.
It's just because of the use. So when you look at all those factors as far as the cost, it's really hard to make it affordable for the person that wants to recycle. I don't believe, it's not just my personal feelings, but what I've heard from others, that you can't make everybody recycle if they don't want to. It's just like telling somebody you can only go to this doctor. You can't do that.
Yes.
We're in a free society. So if you do that, what's the cost? And how many people are going to do it? They say you can do a survey. Well, I'm not so sure the surveys are going to be accurate because they can be, tainted one way or another. So when you do all that, you're taking these recyclable materials, supposedly. You're taking them to the Lake Road facility. It's going to be dumped on the floor, put in a truck, and taken to a landfill. So what are they concerned about? The environment, correct? What about the carbon footprint? Each one of those trucks, you got additional carbon footprint. They're 62,000 pounds, the gross vehicle weight ratio. More wear and tear on our streets, which means we got to replace them sooner than we normally do. Asphalt lasts about 15 years. Concrete, it's, who knows in this environment because of the weather changes. So you not only have the carbon emissions for that, but everything taken to the landfill is carbon emissions. You have methane gas coming out of there. All the materials, all the food waste that goes in, when it's taken to a landfill, it breaks down into methane. And there's a company, where is it? Called Carbon Mapper. And you can actually map over that landfill, and you can see the flume from the methane gas coming out of there. So again, what are we doing for the environment?
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
couple cities, and I really don't want to get into this, but like New York City and there's some of the West Coast states have required recycling for food waste. In other words, all the restaurants, instead of putting in a trash and it being disposed of, you have to actually dispose of it in a to where it's going to be composted. And really, composting is the best thing. Every family should do it. I compost at home, but that's eating my leftovers. I don't. There's not a lot of food waste in our house, and my wife will verify that. So it's supposed to be humorous, right?
Yeah,
a little
it is
bit.
humorous.
Yeah. I'm glad I got a
Yes.
laugh out of you.
Yeah.
So we've kind of covered the costs why we aren't doing recycling.
Because that has been a big issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you put a pencil to it, even if we got 20 or 25% of the people in town that would pay, how much is that?
Not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, to cover the cost.
So the initial startup cost on this is about $2 million plus, just to get started, and not knowing if it will succeed. But the end goal is it's still going to go, because of flow control, to the Lake Road facility, and it'll end up in a landfill. Matter of fact, there's so much out there. I think it was a couple weeks ago. They had to shut down the facility because the truck drivers that would take it to the landfill never showed up, and it was they filled up the facility with all this trash from everywhere. Because think about it, our whole county, everything has to go there. All the different carriers, the two cities, which is Wadsworth and Medina, have their own sanitation departments. They're all there. Matter of fact, Medina, they had one of their drivers stuck for 4 hours. It was all on overtime, waiting to get out of there because they couldn't dump the loads. So, as they say, trash is a dirty business, but it may not like what I have to say, but it's the truth.
Well, and just because we don't like what you have to say, we appreciate all the research that you've done on this.
Well, I've been doing this for quite some time, not to interrupt, but if you look on my folder with all this, it goes back to 2012. So I've been on it not just in the last couple of years. I've been following this quite some time.
And I'm going to pull that back and say, I do think this might be a passion of yours.
Oh, no.
I'm going to say it.
It wouldn't be at the top. The parks is my number one.
Yes, it is.
And we've done some wonderful things there.
Yes.
If we were going to spend $2 million, I'd rather have it in the parks, because you're certainly helping the environment there, too.
Yes, absolutely. Holy smokes. Now, one of the things that you and I have talked about is that even no matter that all these things go into the landfill, what we've talked about is the fact that people don't know how to recycle. Yeah. And so when you go to take what you believe to be something that's going to be recycled, and it's a mess at the transfer stations, and people throw things that we've seen so many things.
There's a lot of examples.
Oh my goodness. And I just think that it's hard to believe that all these things get scooted into a landfill, but it's good to know that that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, it's as long as 25% of the county's trash is collected, for recycling, you've met the goal for the EPA of Ohio. Not what actually ends up into a recycled product, which Greenpeace has said only 5% worldwide actually gets recycled out of the products that are collected. Not my number. Got it from them. Found that number at Earth Day here in Medina County. So, yeah, there's an issue out there and nobody has a solution. Up until 2017, the solution was let China take care of it. Xi Jinping, because the WTO, he had to stop it, and it just not only hurt the United States, but hurt Europe as well. One unique thing, want to talk about trash and unique, Singapore, tiny little island in Southeast Asia. They pick up all their trash, all 100%. They take it to an incinerator where it's burnt and turned into, through the process, they generate electricity, and that's how they power their country.
Well, that's amazing, isn't it?
If Singapore can do it, maybe we better take a look at it, because we certainly need more power with everything that's coming on grid. So Yeah.
So what would your advice be? Because we do need the 25%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would your advice
Well,
to our homeowners be?
More containers is not the answer. You know, the county's been very good about putting more containers out. More people are still not breaking down their boxes, and that's why I'm, use this as a topic. Don't put the stuff in there that's really not, recyclable. You can't break down glass. You can't break down plastics, even though they supposedly will go there. But our system, I think, is broken in this county. But we can't do anything locally about it, because we have flow control, and that's regulated by the county officials.
Amazing. Amazing. So it helps to, we're not really helping the earth by any long shot with thinking we're recycling. However, just to continue what we're doing seems a little crazy.
Yeah, don't buy plastic. Don't buy your plastic water bottles. There's other, one of the things they've come out with, you're probably old enough to remember. We used to get
I've had it with you.
Well, I am certainly, because I'm older. But we used to get our milk, in a glass jug.
Yes.
A glass container. Then they came out with the, remember the cartons?
Yes.
Well, now you can buy cartons of water. There's a company that has that. So that may be something to look into. But in our household, like I said, we've gotten away from it. We actually, clean our water in, filter it, and then use it in a glass container. We don't use plastic cups. There's just a lot of things you can do. The big thing with the problem is the cardboard. They're not breaking down your boxes. It's easy to throw them in there. It takes a little bit extra time to cut them up and break them down and, where they'll fit. And you can take care of the next person that comes, because they're going to want to do the same thing. And maybe they're responsible enough. They've actually broken down their boxes. So it's not fair to your fellow citizens.
Okay.
Couple points that you can do.
Okay. Break down your boxes.
Break down your boxes. Get away from plastics. Yep.
Where we go on vacation in the Dominican Republic, they've done away with plastic. And so all of the water bottles are glass. Yeah, and at first it's like, wow, what if I break one? I've never seen anybody break one.
86% of the trash in the Pacific Ocean comes from Asia. And we're going from Korea on down the peninsula. That's where most of that comes from. You mentioned Dominica, just on the other side is Haiti, right? There's a river that runs between, correct?
Yes.
You know what gets dumped into that?
What's that?
All the trash from Haiti goes into that river and right out into the Caribbean. So all these plastic straws that everybody says, oh, they're choking off the fish and the turtles and all that.
Yeah.
It's not coming from America. It's coming from Haiti. Because they're just wide open. Just dump it in the river and forget it. And off it goes into the sea. I've done a little time studying, a few things. Again, it's not on emotion. It's just everything's fact-based. Got plenty.
You do. You do.
Actually, I got more than that, but I didn't have room to fit in my folder. It's in my file.
Well, Dave, we really appreciate you sharing all that information because that's a lot of information. Yeah. And you hear often, especially on the Stellar Wadsworth Neighbors Facebook page.
I'm not on social media, but people have sent me screenshots, and I find them
amusing.
Yeah, or it's just too bad they don't have the correct information.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. If we could do it and it was affordable and we didn't lose money, City of Wadsworth would probably do it. But again, it's got to be on the plus side of the ledger, not the loss side of it.
That'd be your home. That would be your business. Anything. You're not going to do things that are eating up your savings or the money that you have to work with.
Right.
But anyways, I've seen a lot of people say, why don't we recycle? Why, we're only one of the only communities, in the Northern Hemisphere.
No, that's not true because, Medina doesn't do it. They've looked at it as well. Medina doesn't even allow the county's recycle bins on their property. When you go to Medina, it'll either be on a private business or a county property. Medina City doesn't want them anywhere because of the, like we discussed, the trash and irresponsible people putting the wrong things in or stacking it up beside. So, yeah.
Well, Dave Williams, President of City Council, thank you for doing all this research, and thanks for educating us, because, boy, this is an eye-opener.
Well, thanks, and I wanted it to be. And again, I'm not hard to find. I'm 6'3", and when I walk down the street, I'm visible.
Okay.
So
Yes.
stop and talk to me.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to look into this as far as our own home life about using less plastics.
Here's all my notes, Janie.
Okay. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.